Hello, I'm Lisa Montelione from Tampa City Council, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and today we have Tampa City Council member Lisa Montelione, who is District 7 of the council in Tampa. And I'm really glad to have you here. You've been with me so many times before. It's like having old home week to have you back.
It is always a pleasure, and yes, we get to chatting and the camera crew has to stand by. But yes, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, you know, it's really like you're one of the few people who really gives access and is always willing to come in whenever we call you.
Yes, I think that that's key to being a very effective elected official, is for people to have that access. I've got people who call me on my cell phone. I've got people who text message me. I've got people who Facebook message me or send me Twitter messages.
Yeah, we're on Facebook together.
Yes, yep. and I answer people. They're surprised sometimes when I respond. But, you know, knowing your constituency and listening to their problems is really how you effectively govern.
Well, the word transparency has become overused, I think, in a lot of ways, especially with the national press. You know, somebody has a cough, now they want you to give them a doctor's note on what's going on with it. It's their business.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see somebody at the local level who is always willing to return a call, make sure that you have access to them. And that's what you do, and I think that's wonderful.
It was one of the things I set out to do in 2011 when I was elected. And when I ran for Tampa City Council, I talked about that a lot, because people don't realize if they have a problem and they're calling, say, the stormwater, we talked earlier, you know, off camera about stormwater, if they have a problem with code enforcement, or they have, you know, a pothole in their street and they're not getting service, they don't realize they can call me. And sometimes I'll hear about problems. By the time they get to me, they are so frustrated
Chris
and
is taking
so
care of
angry. Well, now, no, Chris does take care of a lot of things, but, you know, but sometimes by the time they even get to Chris, and Chris, just for the public, is my legislative aide in my office, Chris Berg. He's an awesome individual and stays on top of things.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very helpful, too.
Very professional, very helpful. And, you know, but by the time even they get to him, they're frustrated and upset. And I try and make people know, don't let it get that far. If you're experiencing an issue, go to the website, find the Tampa City Council link, and you can contact me, you can contact any number of city council members. And we always talk about how, although I represent District 7 and there are other districts in the city, we have 3 citywide council members, and they also represent everyone in the city. So you don't have one council member that represents you. You have at a minimum of 2, 3, or even 4 if you contact all of us, the 3 citywides, and your district member.
And even if you're out of the district, you can contact even those people.
That's right.
And they all work for you.
Oh, sure. And I hear from people who don't live in the city of Tampa oftentimes. I hear from people who live in Pasco County, because some of the issues, I mean, my district goes directly to the Pasco County line. County Line Road is the northernmost boundary. And, you know, I hear from people who live in Pasco County who have problems because of the proximity to Tampa and because they drive through our city to get to work. A lot of folks who live in Wesley Chapel work at the University of South Florida or the VA or at Florida Hospital, Moffitt Cancer Center, Busch Gardens. So, you know, they are in and out of the city all the time, and they call me, they have a problem, I'll address it.
Out of curiosity, roughly, what is District 7? How do we encompass it?
Okay, so it starts at the Temple Terrace city line, which is the eastern boundary. District 7's western boundary is Armenia. The southern boundary is Bush Boulevard, with the exception of a tiny little piece of Sulphur Springs, because when they redistricted due to population after the 2010 census,
Had to clip that in there.
the state law says that you cannot separate a voting precinct.
Ah, okay.
So when the precinct was originally drawn, parts of Sulphur Springs were District 7. So they couldn't separate that voting precinct, so I still maintain about 12 or 15 streets in Sulphur Springs. And then, so that's the southern boundary. The northern boundary is County Line Road at the Hillsborough-Pasco County line, with the exception of Pebble Creek, because back in the day, they did not want to be annexed. So there's a little cutout at the top of the county line that Pebble Creek is in unincorporated Hillsborough, surrounded on 3 sides by the city of Tampa, and the northern boundary is Pasco County.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been in office now?
So I was elected in 2011. We were sworn in April 1st of 2011. So going on 6 years, almost 6 years, just shy of it.
What do you see when you started 6 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
What did you see as somebody coming in that you would like to see changed and maybe has or maybe not got changed?
Well, I think the communication, again, as we spoke about communication between my office and my constituents or people who have business or come here for travel, that has changed a lot. So my phone rings a lot more often. I get a lot more email than I did initially. And that's a good thing. I mean, I worked very hard at that. And communication, I also talked about when I ran between departments. So although City Council doesn't have purview over the departments of the city, that is a strictly administrative function that falls under a strong mayor form of government with Mayor Buckhorn. But I think I was able to bring different departments together to address an issue. So for instance, there's a park in Forest Hills, and the park floods. It floods so bad, and it's flooded for so many years, that there are wetlands plants growing in the outfield of the baseball field. There are wetlands plants, or the wetlands plants are still there, but the basketball court is no longer. But there were wetlands plants growing in the basketball court. So, you know, I brought together the Parks Department, I brought together...
Can you destroy wetlands plants?
No, we didn't destroy anything. What we took out was the facilities. So there's no longer a baseball diamond, there's no longer a basketball court.
So now it's wetlands.
Now it's wetlands. So I brought together the Parks Department.
That surprised me. I really expected the plants to go.
No. The Parks and Recreation, I brought the Budget Department to the table. I brought stormwater to the table, because each one of them... I would like to talk about stormwater before we're done today. So each one of those departments had jurisdiction over one element. So stormwater is just looking at this from a stormwater issue and what do they need to do, you know, for that. Parks Department is looking at it, well, we have to, whatever stormwater does is coming out of our budget because it's a parks facility. And then they would go back and forth and say, no, stormwater should pay for it, no, parks should pay for it. So I bring the budget office in and have them all sit at the table and talk to one another and work it out. And I was very happy when they came to the conclusion it would take over $1 million to address the flooding and the stormwater, not just for the park, but for the surrounding neighborhood. And that project has been approved. The money is in the budget, and they'll probably start on that. They're doing preliminary work now, and they'll probably start on that in 2017.
I want to talk a little bit about the stormwater thing.
Sure.
Again, self-disclosure. I think people that have a problem need to pay for it, or at least carry a lot of the load with it. I noticed that there was a division within the council about why we should either have those people pay for it with an assessment or not. Can you explain a little bit about the thinking, the way it went?
Sure. So we were able to pass an assessment fee for maintenance because there wasn't an argument that we did not have enough money in the city coffers to keep up with the maintenance issues that aging stormwater system has. And some of our stormwater infrastructure is over 100 years old. So cleaning out ditches, maintaining the ponds, the stormwater retention ponds, all of those things, even street sweeping. People don't realize, they think when they see a street sweeper that it's just to make the streets and the curbs look nice and pick up the garbage. That is a function of stormwater maintenance, because if the street sweeper program wasn't in place, all of what you see would end up in the storm drain, which ends up clogging the system up because it all accumulates. If it's going to the pond or it's going to the river, as you can imagine, you don't want those, McDonald's wrappers and what have you. But so when you see a street sweeper, that is a function of our stormwater maintenance program. So, that was an important thing, and we were able to all agree on that. What was more difficult of a decision was how are we going to address the capital infrastructure projects? And those are the very expensive projects that would really be a game changer in solving our stormwater issues. Some of the issues were, there was a lot of misinformation about everybody paying for this. And in fact, everybody paying for a problem that South Tampa has. When in fact, the stormwater problems and the flooding occur in a variety of areas of the city, including my own District 7 in North Tampa. So anyone who's familiar with Nebraska Avenue floods. Fowler Avenue used to be knee-deep in water. We were fortunate that Mayor Iorio had put aside money for stormwater infrastructure when she was in office, and there was a $30 million project to address the stormwater problems of Fowler Avenue. We can't have a major thoroughfare in the city of Tampa, or even Hillsborough County for that matter, be knee-deep in water. I mean, it paralyzes. This is the third largest employment center in the county. So with all these employers and all of these individuals trying to get to and from work, you can't have them knee-deep in water. If you remember, it was 30th Street, I believe, that was on the news, where the ditches were so full in a rainstorm that people couldn't tell where the edge of pavement were.
Yes.
And there was a couple of vehicles in those ditches. One of them, I was there and watching them pull it out of the ditch, and it was windshield deep in water. So this isn't just a South Tampa problem. This is also a North Tampa problem. We're in a closed basin system here, so there's nowhere for the water to go. So we have to put in the infrastructure, we have to pump the water out, we have to put it in ponds, we have to pump it out and it does go to the Hillsborough River. So, that's, I think, clears up maybe some of the misinformation. So.
And it has to be paid for. Somebody's going to pay for it.
$235 million in projects. With the passage now of the stormwater assessment that we approved not too long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, it's $235 million. We will bond that out so that we can do those projects sooner rather than later. The other option is what's called pay-go. So we would do a project when we had the money. Then we do the next project when we had that money. When you're looking at $235 million in deficiencies, it would probably be decades
not
before
spare change, right?
We could, pay as we go and address this problem.
Charlie has come on this program any number of times.
Oh, yes.
And talked about his ideas on sewers.
Yes,
and the problems we've got.
Yeah, and Councilman Miranda spoke quite often about the deficiencies of how we have planned the stormwater assessment fees. And it's not perfect. We are going to have a workshop to address the mitigation credits. So if a property owner wants to invest a lot of money to address, we're talking about commercial properties now for the most part, wants to invest a lot of money to address their problems, we do need to incentivize that, because if they fix their own problem,
sure,
then that's less water going into our stormwater treatment system and less, water that we have to move as a city. So, I believe that they should get the mitigation credits that they deserve. Right now, it's a flawed, formula, and we are going to be looking at that.
What scares me with all this water going somewhere is so much of it going into our sanitary sewers and ending up in the bay.
Right.
I mean, great. if we don't fix all of this, we're in trouble.
Well, like I said, I mean, we do have the stormwater treatment plant, and they process a lot of water. But quite often, in some places, if it's not going to our stormwater treatment plant, it's going directly to the river. Especially when you have a tremendous rain event, and not all the water can be taken in by the stormwater system. So it's going directly into the river, right from the runoff from the
Exactly.
street. Especially if you look around here in North Tampa, Seminole Heights is a good example. Riverside Heights and those areas where you have a great deal of flooding and the river is just so close by, and of course water is going to seek the lowest point.
What other areas do you think the city needs to look at right away?
Transportation.
All right, you've hit
Another
another of my hot buttons.
Another controversial topic. Unfortunately,
What do we do about transportation?
there's not
It's so
one
polarized.
Yeah, there's not one answer to what to do about transportation. There's got to be a multitude or multi-layered way to meet people's needs. I mean, our bus system does the best they can. Catherine Egan has been a fabulous leader
She is very
since she took
good.
over the helm. She is a roll up your sleeves, get it done, and think outside the box kind of person who knows her business inside out. So with her, they've done a lot of innovative things on a shoestring budget. They are mandated to provide transit to all of the population, not just a particular segment of population. So we're not looking at, a luxury bus system. We are looking at a functional bus system, and that's what Catherine's been able to do. And I commend her for working with the budget that she has.
I look at things like this new expressway toll road for the wealthy,
Okay, so now you hit one of my hot buttons.
and I think to myself, it's going to destroy neighborhoods, and all it's going to do is put more traffic downtown quicker, and you still can't go through Tampa during the daytime.
Well, it's the way it's designed, there are limited exits for downtown. So it's really to move people through the region, not to downtown. There are access points and exit points downtown, but it's really to move people from South County to North County, or into Pinellas or Pasco County. Into Pinellas County through the West Shore area. So, I supported with a yes vote TBX to move the project through. What people don't realize is that I sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, and we have to approve the Transportation Improvement Plan every single year. So, initially I was a yes vote, and then at the last vote in August, I changed my vote to a no. And there were a lot of reasons for that. It will come up for a vote again next year, because we have to approve every single year.
Things change.
Things change. The budget changes. The Florida Department of Transportation budget through the state. It
Gives and takes away.
Each segment of that TBX, or the managed toll lanes, has to be approved by the state in their budget, and the money's got to be there. So this, it's not going to be constructed tomorrow. Transportation projects take a long time. But the way I feel is like this, Bill. It's government's responsibility to provide the infrastructure in order for the city to function and grow economically, in order for its citizens to enjoy a good quality of life, and for people who visit here, which is a big tourist economy here, for people who visit here to have the infrastructure that they need in transit that they need to get around. And for us to say as a state that we're going to build this road or expand 275 and add these toll lanes with taxpayer dollars, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to charge you to use it, to me is, double taxation, if you will, even though one's a user fee.
Right.
So I have a real problem with that. And then again, I'm the vice chair of the Community Redevelopment Agency in the city of Tampa. And the Community Redevelopment Agency was formed to protect the inner core neighborhoods that were destroyed by the construction of
Exactly.
275, back in the 50s.
Right.
So here we are as a government agency trying to protect and rebuild these neighborhoods. And as I mentioned before with Seminole Heights and their flooding problems, that's a burgeoning economic seat right there with all the restaurants that are coming up and the homes that are being built and restored, 100-year-old homes being restored. And that neighborhood is starting to come back to life. Tampa Heights, the same way. It's just starting now to come back to life after all these years. And here we go destroying the neighborhood again.
I think one of the things I will commend you on is being willing to say, I voted for it and I decided different. Anyone who stays and says, I never changed my mind, is either a liar or an idiot. Because that means you haven't learned a thing.
No comment.
I'm serious. And it just aggravates me because someone does do their research, do their homework, looks at what's going on now versus what went on then. And then they call that person a flip-flopper. That's stupid.
There's
that
new
person's
information
doing
all the time.
new information.
There's
yes.
new information all the time. And, I spend a lot of time with staff. I spend a lot of time with the staff of the Florida Department of Transportation. I spend a lot of time with community members. And, looking at the plans and combing through the budget, and, the numbers just didn't work for me. Just this morning, I was at a Livable Roadways Committee meeting, which I chair. And FDOT was presenting some of the things, some of the schemes for making the spaces, they've been working with the community, making the spaces under this roadway more enjoyable. Now, think about this. You're going to have 200 feet of roadway, 200 feet.
Or trucks rumbling
Above your head,
yeah.
Above your head. So those spaces they're looking at art, they're looking at activating them with parks, but the Florida Department of Transportation just builds that stuff. The city of Tampa has to maintain it. Now think about this. In order to have this project, they are going through the eminent domain process. Right now they're going through voluntary surrender of properties where they're negotiating with the property owners and buying them voluntarily. People who don't negotiate and voluntarily sell their property, they're going to go through an eminent domain process. The city of Tampa is going to lose revenue from property tax base that is in that corridor. And
yes.
the CRA is funded by property taxes. So we're going to have decreased revenues, but yet we're going to have to maintain whatever FDOT builds. So I was questioning that this morning, and I've questioned it as well at the full board of the MPO.
Switching subjects again.
Yes.
You've been on the council.
Yes.
And you've decided to make some changes.
Yes, I have.
What have you decided you want to do for those that aren't paying attention?
This was a really, really hard decision, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. It took me a very long time to arrive at the decision, but I have decided to run for the House of Representatives and represent District 63. So I will be leaving my seat on November 8th. So I remain a council member and a member of the MPO and the CRA and all the other boards that I sit on and represent the citizens until November 8th. On election day, I hope to be the successful candidate and then take a seat as the representative for the area for District 63. And I love what I do. I love what I do.
Yes, you put a lot of effort into it.
We've had enough conversations. So I think people know how much heart and soul I've put into my district's council seat. But there are things that are facing the state of Florida that I don't think have been addressed sufficiently. And the three core issues for me are mental health care, education, and physical health care, so medical care. Those three things, if you educate a child, no matter where they live, no matter what their socioeconomic background, no matter the family that they are born into, if you educate that child, they have a great shot at life and a good foundation. With mental health care, we have 4 million Floridians, adults, and 2 million children who are in need of services who don't get them currently. I sit on the board of Northside Behavioral Health and the Ybor Youth Clinic. And I can tell you firsthand that we've got a lot of people who would benefit from fully funding a mental health care system. There's been a lot written about it in the paper as far as the institutionalized mental health care. And it's takes care of problems ranging from bullying in school, being not productive, depression, suicide, even some of the horrible headlines that we see with mass shootings. Take care of someone's mental health care and they'll be a more productive citizen. And the same goes for medical care. We need to expand Medicaid and we need to give people the care that they need.
I like to see children have better medical care.
Yes, yes.
I hear a lot of lip service from our legislature about how much we care about children.
Yes.
But one of the legislators told me, and I won't mention which one, but he was a Republican, he told me that 70% of the children who will come through the Aid to Dependent Children program all the way through will have a criminal record before they get out of the program.
It's very sad.
And that's not good. There needs to be a lot of changes
Right,
made.
and again, that has to do with what I mentioned, education. And we have to give them the skills and the motivation to work in jobs that are fulfilling and rewarding. Not everyone, Bill, is cut out to go to college and get a 4 or 6 or 8 year degree. We need more money in technical schools. We've got lots of these 21st century jobs in technology that don't necessarily require a college degree. There are a lot of technical fields to be fulfilled. I know an artist who interviewed with the company Sindaver. An artist working in the technology field. Sindaver makes cadavers that look and feel to a physician in training just like a real person. And they wanted, they hire artists in order to make them as lifelike as possible. And, you know, so there's a lot of jobs in the technology field that people, you know, don't necessarily think of. And we need to train our children, our workforce. And if we're going to have a growing economy, we have to have individuals who are ready for those jobs. Companies don't want to come here if they don't find an educated workforce.
Or don't have transportation.
Or don't
I'll
have
throw
transportation.
that back in there.
That's right. Or don't have transportation. So we need to educate our children. We need to take care of their mental health care needs and, you know, have them be the productive adults that, you know, make our society and make Tampa a great place to live.
Councilor Montelione, I thank you so much for
Always a
coming in.
pleasure.
And maybe
Thank
the
you.
next time when you come in, we'll get to say State Representative
Yes.
Montelione.
As my mother would say, from your mouth to God's ears.
Well, you've always been good about coming in, and I'm sure you take a new office, you'll still come in.
I
Thank you
certainly
for
will.
being with us. Thank you for your staff. They've been great.
Yeah.
We appreciate everybody down there.
Thank you very much.
I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, you know. And we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government.